These two boxes of Rallyman are jam-packed with possibilities, and it's my intention to highlight all of the interesting things you can do with them. This is Shakedown. In today's Shakedown, we take a trip through time and space to see what we might be able to do to give any unfortunate drivers another goal to aim for. The nature of abstracting motorsport into a board game means that it is entirely possible for a player to win a race with what may be one of the slowest times around the track, should you be keeping tabs on ending gears each turn, and to some people playing Rallyman, that feels weird. But is it so weird once you know that a single Rallyman lap is actually representative of 30 laps? Don't take my word for it, the reason you're blocked isn't just because of getting stuck in an awkward space, but because you've been looking for an opening for a handful of laps and haven't yet found one. The reason the leader has opened up a healthy gap isn't just because they've more luck with the dice, but because they've posted consistent lap times while you're still trying to hook up a set of corners. This is all well and good when it comes to explaining why the first car over the finish line is the winner, but what about the cars at the back, who, perhaps through no fault of their own, have to keep racing when they know there's no hope of winning? Can't we give them something else to aim for? Today, our 30-lap race that is taking place over a single Rallyman lap is around Interlagos, where the dynamic weather should produce some rain as showers are forecast, and where there may well be two winners. The first driver to cross the finish line wins the race, as is normal, but the fastest driver to finish will take home the fastest lap award, which we can imagine as a few bonus points for the championship, for example. Each driver will therefore keep track of their ending gear each turn, count up the time it has taken them to finish, and reduce that by the number of focus tokens they have acquired, just like any other time trial-based Rallyman event. It is of course possible for a driver to finish first with the fastest time, and it is probably likely, but if you've watched any amount of motorsport, you'll know that the fastest laps can come from anyone, anywhere, especially if the conditions are favourable for some cars and not others, like there being a change in the weather at just the right time. So, with two prizes to aim for, you're not necessarily out of the competition after some early setbacks, although the challenge to recover lost time will still be a tricky one, especially when you also need to consider overtaking and defending. On track today are some of the women in motorsport who are out to prove that anyone can be fast if given the opportunity. Sarah Bovey, Jamie Chadwick, Rahel Frey, Michelle Gatting, Catherine Legg and Dorian Pan are behind the wheels of some GT6s, and they'll all be run at their medium difficulty, just to increase the chances of some unlucky dice rolls. Hopefully we'll have two winners. Spread your bets now. On the front row of the grid today is Michelle Gatting. She is going to re-roll a coast die, not pick up any other hazards, but not have much of a choice but to go 1-2 coast into the first corner. Catherine Legg is next, and again she's going to get up to second gear around the outside. That rather means that these other four drivers don't have much of a choice. They are going to do their best to get into second gear as well. Michelle then has got quite a few hazards on her coast dice. Can she make use of all of these dice? Let's see. Second, third, fourth. Coast there for the first hazard. Let's see. She can go in there with another hazard. She can go in here in fifth gear. Now that would normally be fourth gear because of the sharp corner, but Michelle Gatting has the sharp trait, so she can go through it without the need to change gears. That's just showing off, frankly. She didn't need to do that on this turn, but she can't place down gear 6. That would be her third hazard for the turn. So the best that Michelle could do is end there in fifth gear. Catherine Legg next. She too has picked up hazards on her coast die and gear 6. Unfortunately for her, she is going to pick up another hazard for going into this corner in first gear. So that is 2 hazards for the turn, meaning she won't be able to place down another coast die. What can she do then in order to make things tricky? She finishes a little further back in fifth gear. Sarah Bovey is next to tackle the chicane. She is adaptable and she does have the hot lap trait, and I think she's going to need them. She would like to get up to fifth gear here. Jamie Chadwick is hoping to do something very similar as she too finishes in fifth gear. Dorian Pan, she wants to be probably in as high a gear as she can, and that would be fourth gear. Rahel Frey then can do much the same. She gets into 4th gear around the outside of Dorian Pan. Next round, we're going to check the weather. The forecast is for showers. Do we have showers? We are currently on space 6. We've just rolled a 0 in order to push us 2 spaces towards the wet weather side. 1, 2. We are now in a wet race. So the leader is coming into the pits early. She's going to break down to 3rd gear for 1 hazard, and then drop to 2nd, drop to 1st, and peel off into the pits. Is she unlucky at the end of her turn? She is. It is -1 gear. Catherine Legg's race may well be undone right now. She won't be able to break down to 3rd gear, and to go into 4th gear would mean picking up another hazard. She is spinning out as the change in weather catches her out. Sarah Bovey takes over the lead of this race. She's currently in 6th gear, but on the wrong tyres. Will that come back to haunt her? We will find out soon enough. Jamie Chadwick can descend through the gears in order to come into the pits. A 6th gear finish for the young Frenchwoman. But once again, she's on the wrong tyres. Is that going to cost her? Let's see what Rahel Frey can do then. Those coast ice have not allowed her to get much distance. She comes into the pits for a change of tyres. Next round then, we still have 2 cars that have not yet pit and 1 car that has not come out of the gravel trap in order to then pit. So let's see what we can do for Sarah Bovey. 6, 5, and then 4. Then she can coast, break down to 2nd gear as that falls off the corner, coast again, and then end here in 1st gear in order to come into the pits. And hopefully she has enough distance to the cars behind. Next on track is Dorian. She would want to do something very similar if she can. She is smooth, so she's going to try to re-roll this hazard off of her brake dice, which she successfully does, which means she can do something very similar. Rejoining the track is Michelle Gatting, now on a good set of wet tyres. She gets 1 brake die back. Behind her is Jamie Chadwick. Jamie is going to re-roll her highest gear and 2 blank coast dice. Doesn't get rid of anything. She does have the adaptable trait if she needs it, and I think she will need it. She's going to go 1st, 2nd, 3rd. That'll be 2 hazards. So she's going to try and get rid of this hazard on gear 4. She is not able to do it. She is just going to be able to get into this space in 3rd gear. Coming out of the pits is Rahel Frey. She is going to hope to capitalise on Jamie Chadwick's slow progress ahead as she finishes in 6th gear. Catherine rejoins the track in gear 0. She is yet to go into the pits. She is not going to have the best of races today. We check the weather once more, and it is getting wetter and wetter as Rahel Frey takes the lead to 5th first. Then she'll break down into 2nd, and that will be 2 hazards for her turn. And the best thing that she can do after that is to get into 3rd gear and gum up the corner. Michelle Gatting into 2nd gear around the outside. 3rd gear, when put alongside Rahel Frey, will be turned into a hazard because of the defender trait. So that will be her 2nd hazard of the turn. She can coast out. It is a 3rd gear finish as she edges ahead of Rahel Frey. Jamie needs to be here in 3rd gear. Coming alongside Rahel Frey with the defender trait means that it's going to be a hazard no matter what. So in order to get there, she needs to be here in 2nd gear. In order to get there, she needs to be here in 1st and then coast like that. From there, she can come alongside Michelle Gatting in 3rd gear, and then she can sit on the inside here in 4th gear. Rejoining the track and with nowhere to go is Sarah Bovey, and behind her is Dorian Pan in gear 0. And that means that the next car to move is Catherine Legg. She can't even get past the next corner thanks to hazards on her coast ice, and finally makes it into the pits. Next round, Jamie Chadwick to go first. She doesn't really want to be in 6th gear heading into a 1st gear corner, so I think she's going to do something like that and end in 5th. Michelle Gatting then, she's going to finish there in 5th gear. Behind her is Rahel Frey. It is a risk for Sarah Bovey to do this. She finishes alongside Rahel Frey in 6th gear, but it's a dangerous corner, so that would be a lot of hazards picked up. Let's find out what Dorian Pan can do. Let's have her risk 6th gear and see if either of these drivers can get around the double dangerous corner in 5th gear on their next turn. Catherine Legg rejoins the track. She is able to get up through the gears if she wants to and end in 6th. Let's see what Sarah Bovey can do then with her risky trip around the outside of Michelle Gatting. She has got a flawless set of dice. So she is able to drop into 5th gear. It's a dangerous space. It gets turned into a hazard. She's able to coast in 5th gear. It is a dangerous space. It gets turned into a hazard. She can come alongside Jamie Chadwick in 5th gear. She can drop into 4th, break down to 1st gear and emerge here in 2nd, and a gear 3 finish for the Belgian. Can Dorian Pan do that herself? She won't be able to break down to 1st gear. She can get there in 4th, and a 3rd gear finish for Catherine as Jamie finishes in 3rd alongside Sarah. Michelle Gatting is going to get into 3rd gear using the long space. Is she unlucky at the end of her turn? She is. This time out it is a change in weather. So we're going to roll the weather die again. It is a 7, so it's going to get even wetter. Let's see what Rahel Frey can do then. She is going to want to be in 4th gear there if she can. She needs to break down to 3rd gear for the speed limit. She can then coast like that as she finishes in 4th gear. Unfortunately for these cars in 4th gear, there is nowhere really for them to go other than into the back of the cars ahead. Sarah Bovey needs to break down for the corner. She can get up to 4th gear without concern and then take the middle lane, and that will pressure the cars behind to go on the inside and pick up an extra hazard on the next turn. Jamie Chadwick to try to overtake her then. She can take the inside, she'll risk it. Michelle Gatting is going to do much the same. Catherine Legg at the back has a flawless set of dice as she finishes in 5th gear. There are rumbles of thunder in the air as Catherine Legg takes the first turn. Wants to overtake the cars ahead, but I don't think she is able to thanks to Rahel Frey's defender trait. So if she puts a die into this long space, no matter what it is, it will turn into a hazard. If she crosses this line, she will take a hazard. So there's going to be 2 hazards at some point on this turn. Unfortunately for Catherine, she has a hazard on one of her break dice. So there is nothing that she can do but to spend it there to break down 1st gear and then be blocked by the cars ahead. Jamie needs to hope for a clean set of dice because when she breaks down to 1st gear for this speed limit, she takes 1 hazard for going onto the sharp corner. It's the only hazard that concerns her. She's going to go up to 4th gear on the inside in order to take turn order, I think. That makes life a little difficult for Sarah behind her, around the outside of Jamie in 4th gear. She keeps the pressure on and looks for an opening. Next up is Michelle Gatting, and she's got lots of hazards on her break dice. She can't get up to 3rd, that would be her 3rd hazard for the turn. She sits behind the front runners in 2nd gear. Speaking of 2nd gear, Dorian Pan has some hairpins to navigate. She takes to the inside, which is a bit of a risk on the next turn, as she tries to keep Rahel Frey behind her. Next round, Jamie Chadwick to go first. She managed to use all of her dice on this turn as she comes around the last few corners in 6th gear. Sarah Bovey is able to do exactly the same. Next up is Dorian Pan. She is hoping to get ahead of Michelle Gatting. She is going to take a hazard for diving into that corner, so she's going to use her smooth trait to try and get rid of this hazard on a break die. It doesn't happen for her, so she's going to have 2 hazards for her turn already. That means that she is going to need to work out how best to overtake Michelle Gatting. She is an opportunist. That's not going to help her because it is the coast tyre that has the hazard on, not gear 3. So the best that Dorian can do is to come into 4th gear there to defend from Rahel behind. Michelle Gatting escapes being overtaken then. Through the corner she goes in 2nd, and then she is able to get all the way up to a couple of spaces behind the leaders in 6th gear. Finally, Catherine Legg at the back. She can end here in 4th. It's a weather round. Have we got lightning as well? We don't. It's actually easing off. It is just a very stormy day around Interlagos as Jamie Chadwick hopes to secure her lead. That is a 2nd place finish for Sarah Bovey, unless something incredibly disastrous happens to Jamie Chadwick. What does Michelle Gatting want to do? She can get up to 5th gear and then into 6th gear there for a 2nd hazard. Dorian ends in 6th gear around the back straight. Can Rahel keep up? Probably not with those hazards, she can't. She starts to finally lose pace with Dorian. Catherine at the back with a pretty good set of dice. I think she'll be able to come up to this final hairpin. Jamie Chadwick crosses the finish line in 6th gear in 1st place, as Sarah is likely to cross the line as well, as she finishes 2nd on the day. We don't know where on the timing board. Michelle Gatting to try her luck. She is 1 space short of the finish line. Dorian Pan behind, 5th and then 6th in that space there. The best that Rahel can do is finish in 6th gear before this kink in the road as she tries to defend against Catherine at the back. And speaking of Catherine at the back, we're going to see what she can do. Hopefully get an awful lot of distance because her luck has not been with her in this race. She is going to re-roll these coast dice. No hazards picked up. She is going to... Oh no, she's going to lose control. She's got hazards on gears 2, 3 and 4. So at the end of this turn, she does spin out. She's going to break down to 1st gear, coast out, into 2nd gear, into 3rd gear on the long space. She can't place down 4th gear, that would be her 3rd hazard. So she is in this space, no damage, but she crashes out once again into gear 00. Absolutely not what Catherine wanted for her time, as she takes another 30 seconds on top of the minute that it'll take to get her back on the track on the next turn. The thunder rumbles on as Michelle Gatting crosses the finish line in 6th gear. Dorian Pan is next. She's 1 space short. Rahel is going to slows to a crawl at the end of her lap. Of course, it's probably somewhere around lap 27. Catherine returns to the track in gear 0. Dorian crosses the finish line in 6th gear. Can Rahel cross the line as well? She crosses the line in 6th gear. And of course, normally we would know that the last player doesn't have to cross the finish line. They will definitely be last. But we need to track the time of Catherine. She's unlikely to get the fastest lap time, having crashed out on 2 occasions now. But we must be consistent when we have scoring to keep track of. She would love to have been able to show off her on the limit trait by redlining, but she's already used all of her gears to get this far down the track. But that'll be for the next turn, I'm sure, as she finishes there in 6th gear. And so as the lightning strikes, Catherine redlines it across the finish line, and that is our Interlagos race. We know that Jamie Chadwick crossed the finish line first for the championship points, but who has got the fastest lap for some bonuses? Let's assume then that this race is part of a championship, which means Jamie Chadwick takes home 25 points for her race win, Sarah Bovey takes 18 for 2nd, and the podium is completed by Michelle Gatting, who takes 15 points. We're going to be generous and award 5 points to the driver with the fastest time, so let's see who managed that. With a time of 7 minutes 27, it's safe to say it wasn't Catherine Legg, what with 2 gear 00 crashes and a trip to the pits. Rahel Frey's decision to slow down towards the end of the lap cost her a chunk of time. She finished in 5 minutes 29, with Dorian Pan lapping in 5 minutes and 3. It could well have been possible for these positions to have been reversed had Frey kept her pace up, especially with Pan getting blocked coming out of the pits. The target time for the cars ahead is Chadwick's 4 minutes 18. It certainly helps to finish the race a few turns sooner than your opponents. Sarah Bovey cut the timing beam in 4 minutes 31, and while getting blocked coming out of the pits didn't help, she could have gained 20 seconds back by blocking Chadwick later on in the lap using the long spaces, and who knows how the race would have unfolded from there. I guess she needs to be more ruthless in her racing next time out, despite already being capable of taking risks around the outside of dangerous corners. So, can Michelle Gatting get some bonus points? Well, it turns out that Gatting matched the pace of Chadwick really consistently, but having gear damage for much of the race, having to drop 20 seconds due to an unfortunate set of dice, and then being a single space short of the finish line causing her to take one more turn, meant that she clocked in a time of 4 minutes 42 when all was said and done. It means Jamie takes home the bonus points, as well as the race win today, but hopefully you've seen that even with some setbacks, you can post a solid lap time in the middle of a race. The more I've gone over the turns in my head while editing, the more things I've seen. If you come into the pits one space sooner, you've then got one more space to accelerate into on your next turn. But is that strategy more useful for posting faster lap times or for winning races? Or is Rallyman just far too situational to make a definitive statement on such a thing? What today definitely shows is that it doesn't take too much effort to keep track of your race time as though you were tackling the circuit in a solo race. And if you've got the dirt components, you can even make use of the time cards and second tokens to make it more obvious that you're keeping track of time as well as position. If you're hosting a championship of any sort, then giving out some bonus points for the fastest lap can keep things tight and put more pressure on the leaders to maintain their lead. Or, of course, strengthen it should they be dominant when it comes to lap times as well as race wins. It's definitely something to think about if you can't quite wrap your head around one lap simulating 30 actual laps. And who knows, maybe a change in thinking how you approach the abstracted time and space of Rallyman GT will help our race strategy should Rallyman 24 ever see the light of day. Until then, keep exploring the multitude of things to do with the box of Rallyman that you have, because there's always another tenth of a second to find somewhere.
Final lap.